you know, by what fates, you know, but he doesn't have that, basically. Fear usually makes this clear, but he's not degenerate. So that's sort of like saying that he's of strong mind. Alas, how, quibus fatis, by what fates that man has been tossed. And that Iactatus is used in the first 10 lines of the book, so in book 1. So this is, he's been literally been thrown in the water by Juno. So this is a word. And we can get into a whole conversation about the fates, but we can do that another time. And then what, like, draining war he was singing. What draining wars, what exhausting, what horrible, what endured wars he was singing. And then here we get this contrary to fact, a conditional. So she's saying if it, and this, the fixum and emotum are the subject, but the actually what's fixum and emotum, what is fixed and unmoved, is the noun clause in the next sentence. The ne cui me winklo velum sociari ugali. So that actually is the subject, that next line. But we don't have to translate it yet. So if it were not sitting fixed and immobile in my mind, in the mind to me, okay? If it were not fixed, but it is fixed, that's why it's conditional contrary to fact, and that ceteret is an imperfect subjunctive. That, and this is the noun, that I was not wanting to sociari, to join myself, me, cui, to anyone in the marriage chain, in the, you know, the chains of wedlock and the bands of wedlock. Okay, and that velum is also in imperfect subjunctive in a substantive noun clause there. Okay, so those are two subjunctives. After first love has fefelet, has deceived me, having been deceived by death, having been cheated by death. Dekepton here. So the fefelet and the dekepton are somewhat repetitive, but actually that repetitive, the redundancy, sort of helps her point, I guess. She has been deceived. So the first love, which is her love of Zacchaeus, has cheated her or deceived her, cheated by death, or has cheated her, being deceived by death. Okay, and then this line is tough because per tassum fuisset is actually a, I call it a super pluperfect. Okay, and you can do that. That it is, it should be, I mean, what we learn in school is per tassum esset, but you can make it even further in the past, and so you can do this. If it had not tired me of something, so literally means if it had not tired me of the marriage bed and of the marriage torch. Okay, the thalami is the bridal chamber or wedlock, and the torch, and that's a metonymy, using those words that are always associated with weddings or marriage. You would use in place of the word marriage. Okay, and this verb pertisum, or tied, this is a compound of this, but it's pertidet is an impersonal verb. It tires someone in the accusative who's not mentioned here, which is may, of something in the genitive. And literally, probably in English, you'd want to say, if I had not been tired of or weary of the marriage chamber and of the marriage torches, perhaps, Forsan, I would be able, usually you would have had a subjunctive here, but, and here he says, the indicative instead of the more usual subjunctive, you would want to say, I would have, okay? But it expresses the conclusion in a more positive way, as though it were practically realized. So, it almost like you want to say, I would have been able, perhaps I would be able, potui, to succumb to, and this takes a dative, to yield Huic uni culpa, to this one guilt, to this one fault, to this one weakness. Again, we could talk about the way, whether this is a, I don't know if we could see sin in the sense of like a Christian way of seeing sin, but I will look into this a little bit more. But maybe more like a mistake or a weakness than a moral culpability. Anyway, we'll get into that. Anna, for I confess, fate bor enem, this is fateor as a deponent. I confess that after, excuse me, fata here I would say is death. After the death of my husband, my wretched husband Zacchaeus, and post I would say after the penates had been, the household gods had been scattered because of this, or by means of, or because of fraterna care, because of this fraternal killing. Okay. This guy, solus hic alone, this guy alone, Aeneas, has bent my senses and has impulit, has like pulled or pushed, I don't really want to do that. Has struck, yeah, struck works well. Has struck my mind, my falling mind, and here he says it like my mind in such a way so that it is going to slip, you know. So I would say animum is more like her resolve that she talks about earlier. So she had resolved earlier that she wasn't going to get married, okay? And what's happening now is that she sees solus hic, this guy alone, is bending things that were not bendable before, okay? He is striking things that were not strikeable before. This resolve, which is now slipping. And she says, I recognize the vestiges, the footprints, the tracks of an old flame. Because I remember how to love. I used to do this, okay? And then here, and this is where we had stopped before. So we have here some subjunctives. You have optem, okay? And the telos ima is the lowest depths, like the lowest earth, the lowest points of earth. And then prius, it goes with the quam, like an antequam. But I might wish, and then the telos ima goes with that, with de hiscat. May I wish, or I would wish that the deepest parts of the earth would de hiscat me, would open up before, like, and that the all-powerful Father would ab egat, would force me to the shadows, okay, to the shadows with his lightning bolt, okay. The pale shadows, okay, in Eurebo, which is the underworld, and to the deepest night. Before antequam, before pudor, shame, modesty, and that's a big time word here. Before pudor, I violate you. And I resolvo, I loosen, I relax your laws, your rights, the things that you, your rules in some ways. So she knows this isn't going to go very well, okay? And the umbras is death, okay? So she's basically saying, I would wish to die and that the deep earth would swallow me up, and that Jupiter, Pater Omnipotens, would strike me with his lightning bolt and send me to the Hades, to pale Hades, and you're in Erebo, and to the deepest night, which is also death. Okay, basically she's looking for death before I violate you, Pudor, and I loosen your rules. So she's already giving herself, like, she already is seeing how loosening this would probably lead to some sort of death, is how I would see it. Okay. That one who first joined join me to himself, Obstulet, took away my first love. And who is that? Zacchaeus. Let that one have it for himself, secum. Let that one preserve it in his tomb. And then in this way, having spoken ephata, which is from having spoken out, really, ephor fare fatusum, she filled her bosom with the tears that had been abortis, with sprung up tears. Okay, so pretty powerful speech.